I know from previous experiences where I have actually, after just a couple of minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, I felt that it wants to come out. And when I follow that instinct and vomit the brew out, my experience is not very strong. So I decided to keep it in. And for those of you that are disgusted or whatever, you can just skip ahead. But what I did was I felt the brew coming up. I closed my mouth, looked up, and made sure it stayed down. I made sure it stayed down, and then it come up again, and I swallowed it down again, up and down a couple of times. It didn't come in my mouth, so don't freak out. It didn't I didn't have a taste or whatever. It just stopped here, and then I just took it down again. And once it calmed down, it was a really nice feeling. You know that feeling that when you vomit and then afterwards you feel better? Yeah, that's the feeling I had. So I was like, oh, it feels good. So I took position again, kind of meditation position, and that's when I started to feel the effects. I started to feel tingling, kind of like an electricity in my toes, my feet, my legs, going into all of my veins and all the cells, and just moving up throughout my body. And I was like, okay, here we go. Terence McKenna explains the psychedelic journey, and right before you're faced to as you go into the psychedelic journey, as if you're faced with a huge wave coming at you, and you're like, okay, here he comes. And that's exactly how I felt. So yeah, I knew that I was in for a ride. This wave hits, and I look around and I start to see the physical world crumbling and just kind of being ripped apart. And all that is left behind this veil of the physical, this wall is not a wall, this chair is not a chair, it doesn't even exist. What I saw was just energy, just empty space filled with energy. And the people that were there and all around me were just beings of energy. And some were more energetic, more energy coming from them, and some had a little bit of less energy. But it was just all energy. And that's when I was like, wow. And actually, that was the whole night almost. I saw everything almost like this. My physical eyes had trouble to actually see stuff and things. I would just I would really need to struggle. There would come a helper, for example, at one point, or many times when I needed help, they would come up to me to help me, and I really had to struggle to see who it was, to switch on my physical eyes, because I could just see energy moving towards me. And I understood the importance. Now we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but just quick note. I understood the importance of the little things, like a smile, for example, because this energy would be whoo, with every nice gesture you do, every sweet thing, every good intention you have, your energy grows and it becomes so radiating. And I saw that in front of my face with every smile, with every hug. It was just amazing. And as I mentioned, I was struggling to actually see things in the physical. But back to my journey again. So that's what I saw most of the night. But Mother Ayahuasca had a plan for me in the beginning, which was purging, cleansing. Oh my god, my hair. Whatever, none of this matters. It's just this hair doesn't really exist anyway. So she wanted to take me on a journey of cleansing, and she said that we needed to go through each of my bodies. And it's quite interesting because apparently, which I actually did a Google search on, there's a lot of quick Google search, I don't know much about it, but apparently there's a lot of bodies. We have a lot of bodies: mental body, spiritual body, energetic body, physical body. I'm not sure about them, but these are all the bodies that ayahuasca decided to go through on me and cleanse them. And what I could see in front of me, so I was in this place of, it was kind of like a library with full of files, and she would be like, okay, now we're going through your mental body, and we would go through every file in my mental body and just like look through if there was any darkness or anything that needed to be cleansed out of me. And then she would find a dark spot and she'll be like, okay, there we have some darkness, and she will grab that darkness and throw it out, and then we'd continue the search of darkness. There's another little bit of darkness, we took that and threw that out, and then to the next body, to the physical, and there'll be like a little bit of darkness there, it needs to be thrown out. And this is the point where I had completely lost my physical body and what it was doing. I had no clue. A lot of people was saying that I had a very tough experience and that I was vomiting a lot. I did at times come back when I needed to kind of grab the bucket. I was like, oh, bucket, I need a bucket to vomit. So then I would come back for a moment, or someone would hold my hand, which meant so much. And then I would also be taken back to the physical, or like when there was at one point when the shaman and some other people came to take me outside for some fresh air, that also I came back a bit to the physical, but most of the time I just had no idea where my body was or what was happening around me. I was in there with Mother Ayahuasca doing the cleansing. And so, as I mentioned, we went through each body one by one, scanning it all and removing the darkness. And then once all the bodies were cleansed, she said, okay, now let's go through your next life and your previous life and your life before that, and generations back, and cleansing. And we just kept going back and back and back and cleansed till we came to a point where time had it was so far back where there was no time. We weren't even on the planet anymore. I don't even know where we were. I mean, we were never really on the planet, but we just went to a place where I couldn't comprehend where we were. This was too much for me, so I didn't understand exactly where we were. And she knew that I didn't know, but she was like, it's okay, we're doing cleansing here anyway. So we just kept cleansing. So in a good portion of the beginning of my experience, my physical body was kind of suffering and vomiting and crying a lot and stuff like that. But as I said, I wasn't suffering at all. I was with Mother Ayahuasca, just observing what was going on. So then after that, she said, okay, now you're clean and now you're ready. Now it's time for you to learn to move between dimensions. And I'm really annoyed because I forgot to bring my book. Give me a second. So I just went to get my book, and I managed to write a little bit in my book. I don't know where I got the power from. It was so hard. Even to sit up was the hardest thing. To grab a pen was like, focus, and then to get the pen onto the paper and then try to write. But the first thing, when I had some energy after the purging and all that stuff, the first thing that I could write was walking through different worlds. So sorry about the handwriting. I mean, at this point I didn't even know what my name was, so this is impressive. so that's what I started. Ayahuasca was teaching me how to move between the worlds. So what she did was, she would be like, okay, now I'm going to show you the physical. And whoops, all of a sudden I would be in the physical, completely normal. Like, I would see everything normal as our reality is, completely stable, like as if I had not even had the drink, like as if I wasn't even on a psychedelic. So yeah, I would be there for a moment, and she'll be like, okay, enough, now come to this dimension. And then boop, she would take me to a completely different place, and we would go to a place that was just huge space full of patterns and this like snake-like patterns everywhere, and just like things. My English vocabulary is not very good, but it was just like that. You get the point. Just full of colors everywhere. And then she would be like, okay, now we're going to this world. And boom, all of a sudden we were in pure lightness. Just pure light, and the feeling there was just amazing. I can't explain how amazing it was. and then whoop, she would take me to complete darkness, and in there would be just like empty and kind of an eerie feeling and just very lonely and cold and not very nice. And then from there she would take me to another dimension, to another dimension. She would take me to places that I can't even describe what they were like. They were like geometrical patterns, and other places there were populations of beings that were nothing like we are. And like we would just go from place to place to place, and she would show me different dimensions. And she's like, remember now how, you know, the feeling of each, and so that you learn to move between them. And she's like, okay, now go to the physical. And I would focus, and I would like come back to the physical, and I would be back here again, and I would be like, wow, I'm back. And then she's like, okay, now come to this dimension. And I struggled. Remember, I'm just a newbie. I struggled, so I had trouble with that, and she would help me. And then I just kept practicing until I came to a point where I could like stand between the dimensions. So for example, I would be with one foot, whatever that is, one part of my being in the physical world, whilst another part would be, for example, let's say in that reality, that dimension. And so I would see the physical world, and then the other dimension kind of overlapping it. So I would see the patterns overlapping what I was seeing in the physical. So kind of merging the two dimensions together. And so I would do that like for a good part of the night, and she would show me a lot of interesting things of how things work in the other dimensions, which there is no way that I can explain that. I tried to think of like, how can I explain this to anyone, but I cannot. Even my brain doesn't really understand it completely. It was just too much of it. Whilst I was there, I understood, or barely, but now it's like, it's very hard to explain. Anyways, also the interesting thing is then later on, towards the very end of my experience, I was slipping in a little bit into the dream, and then I would notice that, wow, this is the dream dimension, and then this is another. So I would be hopping in and out from dream as well. And a very interesting observation is that the dream world is so super similar to a couple of the other dimensions that I was in. So they're very like the astral and the dream world. Some people say it's the same thing. For me, they're just very similar. Not exactly the same, but anyway, that's my experience, but whatever. So I did that for a good portion of the night. And then, yeah, I also spent some time in understanding, which I already touched on from the beginning, on how important it is to be a good person. Because I'm not sure if you can see. It says, nothing matters in the physical world. Everything is energy. None of these human constructs cultivate beautiful qualities. So basically, you know, when I came out of I left the retreat, left the ceremonies, came home, and, you know, went on social media, or just saw people and their labels that they put on themselves, and their image, and, you know, the things that we post on social media are all these things that we, how do you say it? Samlar på oss, Swedish. That we put on ourselves or collect in this world, like material goods and like all these silly things that don't matter at all, because when all this is stripped away, when you see things for how they really are, it doesn't exist. None of that exists, so it's so unnecessary. Okay, obviously we're in this world, so we have to go with the flow when we're here, but just always remember in the back of your head that this is not what truly is. If we could see things for how they really are, which I did, I'm telling you I did, and if you take ayahuasca and you ask for it, you will see it too. In the end of the day, we're all just lumps of energy. Some have stronger energies, some have not as strong. And there's no such thing. I used to always think before that bad people have dark energy, but it's not that. It's just that they have a little bit of less energy. Darkness is a different thing. We are energetical beings, and we will just have more or less of it. But the more you focus on being a nice person and cultivating goodness and kindness and loving, being loving and so on, your energy just radiates. And everything from a little dot to the multiverse, it's all the same. We're all made of energy. And the biggest truths are in the little things that are so obvious, but we are too in our minds to understand and see the clarity. I need to remember how the tiniest little act of kindness, a smile, a hug, etc., affects us. They are very powerful. So basically the only thing that really matters is being a good person. And then I went on a loop on all these wonderful high vibrational states of being, and I was focusing on words such as love, happiness, goodness, trust, kindness, and so on. Oh, I think the video is gonna finish. So hello again. So my memory finished and I needed to start the video again. Excuse me, let me just fix my hair. Okay. I was just in such a wonderful state. I just felt amazing. I just felt so... I was crying out of happiness. So yeah, and then all of a sudden, towards the end, I don't know really exactly what happened, but it was like something opened up here, and from the sky I just started getting information in through here, and it was just a really, really, really bright light coming in through my, like here, my forehead, kind of in between my eyes, and it was just really, really strong light. And it was such a strong beam of light that I thought that it was actually physical, because when I was looking at it, it was like a tube of light, which was information. Actually, my eyes were rolling in the back of my head, and I was just shaking my head and my eyes were rolling. It must have been such a funny thing to see, or scary maybe. But it was so clear, this light thing, that at one point I said, are we in the physical world? I needed to touch it to feel that if this is actually in the physical or just, another plane or whatever. So I tried to catch it, tried to touch this tube of light, but whoop, no, it wasn't there. So it wasn't the physical, but it was just very, very powerful. And I sat there for a couple of hours doing that, just downloading information from the universe. That's what it felt like. So yeah, basically that's my trip, I guess, if we're gonna summarize it and put it in simple words. And it's funny how when it's put in words, it doesn't sound like much, but when it's experienced, it's absolutely mind-blowing and magical. And I can really feel how it's already changed my life, because every time I look at another person, I don't see the image of that person, I see the energy of that person, or I don't see it as I see it, so I didn't the experience, but I remind myself that that person is just an energy. So all these things that are material possessions, what the things that we can buy or the things that we have or whoever we are, in this physical, it doesn't matter. And it's also funny, like when I see a car driving past, I see just a person with energy just floating by. I don't see the car. Like the car doesn't even exist, And it's also easy to now see how we put so much energy on things that have no meaning, that don't even exist. It's so silly. We need to be cultivating beautiful qualities to grow our energetic bodies to become better people, because that's the only thing that truly matters. So thank you for listening. I hope this has somehow given you an idea of things that can happen in this other realm. And I want to finish just saying that Ayahuasca, Mother Ayahuasca, is absolutely beautiful. She is so loving, and whatever you need will be given to you. It's up to you how you want to reach the goal. So you can, to reach a destination, there's many different ways that you can take. You can go by swimming, you can walk, you can go under the earth, you can go flying. There's many ways to reach a destination. How you get there is up to you. You choose that. But always know that she's next to you. And please remember to surrender. It can be hard when you're in like a more dark state. You can let that consume you. But and I did go there slightly at certain times, and it's hard to just let go and surrender, but you need to do that. Please keep that in mind, and always remember that ayahuasca is there for you, next to you, always, just full of love. So ask for her to be gentle, and ask for her to deliver you safely and healthily, and that she cares for you during your journey, and which she does. But whatever you go through is perfect for you. It's the medicine perfect for you. So keep that in mind. And thank you again for listening. If you go through, if you have a story to tell, please share it. I'm so curious and interested in your experiences too. And if you'll have one, or you're about to have one, reach out. I will be more than happy to help if I can somehow. Big hug to you all, and see you.